Hi, this is Kara from the Special Needs Mom podcast.
And this is Angela from Especially Organized, Sensible Solutions for Special Needs Moms.
We have this heart for special needs moms. And so we thought, you know what, let's combine forces. And we have come up with what we're calling the Purge Party. And you can pretty much guess what it is. It's a party where we're going to come together and we're going to purge, or in general, accomplish a goal, a small goal together. So we have set this for January 27th, starting at 8 o'clock for my Pacific Coast people,
which means 11 o'clock for all of you on the East Coast. So this is an opportunity. If you have something on your to-do list that has just been stuck there and you are wanting to move it up on the list, you're wanting to tackle, maybe it's a space or an area of your home or a category in your home that has just needed a little time and attention. This is your opportunity for you to be online with us while you work and have access for us to help you answer your questions, help guide you, and just serve you for those 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you can tell like what we've designed is just this very high level of support for that project that you just haven't been able to tackle on your own. The thing that we are envisioning is that you get to leave this purge party feeling so accomplished because you did the thing. You started the year off getting that thing done that you were stuck on last year. And so it's a momentum builder, if you will. You can go ahead and sign up. We have a link ready for you. And we are offering this for $40 for the whole experience.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll join us. I think it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a great group of moms of special needs kids. So we all get each other. We all have an understanding of what it's like to have something on our to-do list, but just we haven't been able to tackle it yet. So I hope that you will join us. We're super excited to bring this to you, and we are thrilled to work with you.
All right. We'll see you all there. Hi, I'm Kara Riska, life coach, wife, and the mother of 4 incredible and unique kids. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I completely lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and grace that once felt so completely lacking. I started the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves up against what feels impossible. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle the dreams that you hold impossible now. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you're a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Well, hello and welcome back to the Special Needs Mom podcast. I am so glad you're here. This is a place where we gather, we connect, we get real, we laugh, and we cry. And if you are returning back from last week's episode, you will have gotten to know our guest, our interviewee, Laurie Moore. She's actually back again today. I actually split her interview up into 2 separate episodes because we talked about 2 separate things and it fit really well. And I thought maybe it'd be easier if I deliver shorter episodes sometimes. Tell me what you guys think about that. I'd love to have feedback if you like longer episodes or shorter episodes. More maybe is not always better. I don't know. What do you guys think? If you are new, if this is your first episode, then welcome. I am so glad you're here. Our guest today, you can go back and listen to her backstory, but independently of her story, this episode will make sense. So you don't have to go back. Laurie is a mom, a wife of 3 children, one of which is on the autism spectrum. Laurie's background is in psychology and as an ABA provider and well familiar with autism before she became a mom of a child with autism. And she has her own beautiful coming out of hiding story that we talked about last week. Additionally, the pain of what she has experienced as becoming a special needs mom has pushed her into this purpose of being an educator and being a light in what has felt for her like a very dark place. As she's felt, I think the feelings that a lot of us have experienced of devastation around that IEP table and aloneness and overwhelm. She's going to talk all about that in this episode. And what I want you to pay special attention to is what she shares about parents becoming aware of what the law is. And this stood out to me especially because as a coach, I know that awareness or knowledge, you could use those two words interchangeably, is everything. If we're not aware that something exists, we will not see it. If we're not aware of what the law is, we will not know what to ask for. And whether we're talking about IEPs or medical referrals, or if we're not aware of what's even possible for us as special needs moms as far as the happiness and the contentedness and the peace that we can feel, well, then we certainly won't go out and create it. So I really want you to listen to this episode thinking awareness is everything. The other thing I really want you to listen for is at the end of the episode, what you're going to see is she talks about how strong she is, how strong she feels now. And she's going to share with you, and I highlight this in the episode, but I want you to listen for it. She says she used to think she would never be okay if her son didn't talk. And now she says, he doesn't talk. I'm okay. He's okay. So not only is this acceptance of her reality, but there's a true power in her acknowledging that there's really no meaning in him talking or not talking. She had assigned a lot of meaning to it. Now she's at a place where she's accepting and even declaring it's okay either way. That yes, of course, they're going to celebrate the milestones. But if he doesn't have those milestones, what I heard in her speaking is that it was equally okay. And I want you to hear the power that comes from her as she's saying this. It really stands out to me. And I want you to specifically listen for this because I want you to, at the end of the episode, I'm going to give you some application questions. And I want you to really examine what thinking that you might have or what beliefs that you have underlying your story that have you maybe not feeling so strong. Or if you do feel really strong, then let's really identify what's creating those feelings of strength so we can create that more on purpose. Either way, back to what I said just a moment ago, it's all about awareness. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into the middle of the conversation. So it's going to start pretty abruptly here. We're going to be talking about IEPs and Laurie's perspective as a special education teacher. Here we go. A little bit about school. And obviously, I thought it would be interesting to get, you have, perspective on both sides. You are both a provider as a teacher in special education, and you also are a mother and I'm guessing advocate for your son. The thing I was curious about is what do you wish parents knew about what it's like to be in your shoes on that side of the table as they support, as you as a teacher support a child with special needs?
That's easy. So you're in the special needs community, so and this life we live as special needs parents. People are so lucky that they don't have to deal with it for a million reasons. But the number one reason is because these schools and providers and companies and whatever that are supposed to help our children, they don't do their jobs. They make it so difficult every step of the way for us as parents to give our kids the things they need. So my number one piece of advice for parents as a teacher, for parents of kids with special needs, is to learn what the laws are, educate yourself on what the special needs laws are, because you will need to know them. Because if you don't know them, your child will never, ever receive the services that they need. Because the school system I'm sorry, I'm a teacher, but the school system is just like every other thing in the whole world, and it's a business, and it comes down to dollars and cents. And those extra services cost them money. So there are things that they're going to be offered. Obviously, if you're on an IEP, you're going to be offered special ed or resource minutes or whatever. But those extras, like my son gets extra one-on-one minutes. He gets OT services. He gets speech services. He gets music therapy. He gets all these extra services that were never, ever offered to me that I had to, I don't like to use the word demand, but I had to tell them that I was well aware that my child legally had the right to those things. So now he gets them. And it hurts my soul to see the amount of children in special education that don't get the things they need because their parents just don't know. And it's not their fault, because I've said this before. There is no handbook on how to be a special needs parent. There is no handbook on these are the things you need to know and the things you need to ask for and the things that you need to learn before you go to your kid's IEP. No one knows those things. And it's going to affect your child in the long run, because the only person that's going to have their back the way they should is their parent, their guardian, whoever is in charge of them. At the end of the day, like me personally as a teacher, I'm going to do whatever I can, but I have rules I have to follow too. So I can't tell a parent what they have to ask for.
I know that's what I was going to say. I think in the teacher role, it's especially hard because is it, I don't know if it's legal or not, but maybe it's job compromising, but that you're not allowed to say, hey, like you should ask for this.
Yeah.
Because I've had some offline conversations with providers where they might have gotten to the gray area a little bit. I would say that I want to make sure I mention a resource that has helped me tremendously this year with knowing the law. Knowledge has been power, especially during the year of COVID and distance learning and all that. And Ashley Barlow, she has been a guest on the podcast, and we'll put her information in the notes, but her mission is essentially to empower parents through educating them. She's an attorney by trade, and she, of course, now is an advocate. She's a mom of a special needs child, and she puts out content that is so easy to consume. Because to me, it's one of my least favorite things is like reading the documents of the IEP. Like do
you even read it though? Because I don't. For my own child.
Want to know
Obviously,
why
for my students, I do, but for my own child, I read their goals and I read their minutes, and I don't read all that other stuff because it's just.
I will tell you, it's been on my list for 3 weeks now, but one of those weeks was vacation. So let's just make sure we're not, getting too crazy. No, I have not always. I will say that I've not always, but I think because especially this year, I have done a lot more in terms of educating myself. And I would say that my son's in 6th grade now. And so we're not playing around. He's not just cute and cuddly anymore. We have some definite things that I have differences of how I think things should go than the school. But I also have to recognize like he's been home all year. So the school doesn't know him. And so advocating has looked a little bit different, but I do read the documents. And actually, Ashley recorded an episode because I told her, I was like, I don't want to read the assessments, like 35 pages long.
I know.
And she got on me. She's like, you have to read it. And I was like, okay. And so she gave me, there's a episode that she recorded about the intent, like how to read it with intention. And it was really valuable. And so that is my job this weekend. I promised our school that I was going to read it this weekend and very likely sign it. But anyhow, that is where I'm at with the IEP. But
yeah, that's the worst. The IEP process is the absolute worst. The IEP meetings. Yeah. It's what I dread the most as a parent.
What is it like on the teacher side, IEP meetings?
It's different for me as a teacher because I am a parent. So I think that as a teacher, I approach it very differently than 98% of teachers out there. Because for a parent, it sucks. I mean, let's get real. It sucks. Like you're reading percentages and rankings and all that of your child that for me, I mean, my son is very low for his age. He's 6 now, but I mean, he's nonverbal. So, I mean, when you talk about expressive and receptive language, his skills are very, very low percentiles and it sucks.
Well, what I was going to say is for you, my guess is that you're somebody that has ranked above average in most areas of your life. Is that true?
Yeah.
So I noticed for myself, and I would say like definitely not in all cases. I actually had a hard time in certain parts of school, but I related to myself as somebody that was above average, which is kind of funny if you think about that I wasn't maybe, but I related to myself as somebody that was. And I know for myself, when I would look at the charts with my son and see like average or below average, like for me, average was like, that's not okay.
Mhm.
Like there was something about average that was not acceptable. And then I like thought about that. I was like, that's really odd. Like average is like most people.
Average.
That's what average is.
Yeah.
And I think it was just really interesting that my programming coming into, I don't know, most of my life, and especially being a parent, is that really it's got to be above average. And I'm still working myself out of that one. But because of what you had shared, I thought you would kind of relate to that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I've always thought that way too. And I mean, you got to think I have two typically developing daughters, and my oldest daughter is 12, and she has gotten straight A's her whole life. She has been good at sports her whole life. She has been the epitome of an overachiever, which I like. I appreciate those things because so am I. And so when you have a child that struggles in quite a few areas, it's a little bit hard on the soul. But
it is hard. It's hard. And I actually, so my guest, she had to postpone. She was going to be yesterday. She's an OT, actually. She's going to be the first kind of provider I'm having on the show. But the reason I invited her on the show is because I had just gotten out of a very long IEP meeting and I was doing okay, but I had hopped on Instagram and she had a reel that essentially said, she was speaking to a mom saying, hey, I see you in this IEP meeting. And I can't imagine how hard it is seeing like basically below average, not at expected levels or whatever the language is. And she just kind of said like, and she had this music to it. And like, I'm telling you, every time I watch it, I cry. Like it is so
I
hit.
saw that reel.
Yes.
And that reel, like, oh my.
Casey, she's coming on. I'm so excited.
Tell her thank you, because I saw that reel and I remember resharing it. I saw it on Facebook. Somebody actually shared it with me. And then I reshared it. And then I wrote this big thing about why I became a special ed teacher. And I became a special ed teacher because I remember vividly sitting in my son's first IEP meeting. I was not a teacher at the time. I just had my BA, but I was a stay-at-home mom. I remember sitting in that IEP. We had a new diagnosis. He was 3. He was still a baby, but he has to go into early intervention preschool, all the things, blah, blah, blah. And I remember sitting in there and it was me by myself. I didn't go with anybody else because I thought it was going to be fine. There was probably 12 other people in there, administration and OTs and speech therapists and coordinators and I mean, you name it.
Yes, I can picture
and
this
they
exactly.
Were all it was like a 2-hour-long IEP. It was like an initial IEP for him going to special ed preschool. And it was 2 hours of them talking at me. Not one time did somebody say like, are you okay? Do you have input? How do you feel? It was, these are the numbers. These are the numbers. These are the numbers. These are his present levels. He is at a present level of a 12 to 18-month-old. And I have a 3-year-old child. And I remember sitting there almost like in a daze, not even paying attention anymore. And I just remember thinking like, can they not see how bad this sucks? Like, are they not even real people that they're talking to me like my child is a statistic and not a person? Do they not see how bad this hurts? And that, I will never forget that moment, because I remember thinking, this isn't okay at all. And I'm a big proponent of be the change you want to see in the world. Like, I believe that. I don't wait for things to happen for me. I go and I do those things. And I remember thinking in that moment, I need to go be a special ed teacher. So I can sit at the other side of the table and I can talk to these parents who are grieving and hurting and confused and scared. And instead of freaking them out more, I can look at them and tell them, I know how you feel and I can mean it. And I can let them have a little bit of a tiny feeling of a safe place. You know, like she gets it. She's going to take care of my kid. She's going to maybe take care of me. Maybe she's been through things. I'm not there yet. And I remember thinking, I wish there was one person here that could say something like that to me, because I was like dying inside. Like, I can't even describe it any other way. That's how I felt. I felt like I was dying inside leaving that meeting. And that's what literally changed my life and changed my career path into being a special ed teacher, was being so adamant about being able to not be that person for somebody else.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing that story. And I love how it came out. And I'm now even more excited to interview Casey. And I will say thank you. Like many people, your pain has brought on your purpose, I guess. And it's probably a cliche saying, but I do, it's really, really fun to just have a snapshot of what that looks like in your life. Because I think all of us moms are on a journey of our own purpose. And as we parent these kids and actually just as we fulfill who we are meant to be in this world. I really, really am thankful for your time, Laurie. Is there anything else that you would like to share as we wrap up today?
No, I just appreciate being able to, at this point I'm at now where even though I cried earlier because, that grief is always going to be there, but I feel like I'm at this point where I'm so strong. And, after being able to talk freely about how my son is, how I deal with everything that comes along with it. I've had so many people on social media that have come out to me and that I don't know, that have messaged me and have told me the way you describe your feeling back then is how I feel now. And you're the only person who made me feel like that's okay. Cause I'm just like, you know what, at the end of the day, like, I don't care what people think anymore. I don't care if these are the right words or not. This is how I feel. I will openly say how much sometimes this sucks, because it does. And the people who are like, or they'll ask me like, hey, I just got a diagnosis. What should I do now? And I'm like, do A, B, C, D. That's what you do first. But how do you know that if you don't know? And so being able to help somebody who is deep down in those trenches of grief and feeling for 1 second like, okay, it's okay to feel like this. It's okay to know that it's going to be okay. My biggest thing is I'm like, you stay there as long as you need to, because it is a process, but no, you're going to be okay. And I remember thinking, I will never be okay unless my son talks. I'll never be okay. And it's been 4 years. He talks a little bit, but not a lot. He's still nonverbal. And you know what? I'm okay. He's okay. We're okay. We still have a good life. He still has a good life. We're celebrating the little victories. And you know what? I'll be his voice for however long he needs me to be. And that's okay.
Really, really powerful words. And thank you for allowing us to get inside your brain. It's evident from what you share of how you think of why you feel so strong. And so I hope other moms that listen to this hear that and think about where they might be feeding into some non-truths or some thoughts or beliefs that aren't serving them, and have you as a model for what is possible. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Wasn't that amazing? I really loved hearing all of Laurie's perspectives. And if you go back to last week's episode, I loved hearing her coming out story, the vulnerability of the thoughts that she had, that she recognized that I used to think this, and how one could easily feel embarrassed or shame about thinking some of those things, but how she just spoke it out loud. And I know that she doesn't feel shame about that. And the reason I know that is because she's not keeping it a secret. She's telling everybody. It was so powerful to be with. Speaking of everybody, let's talk about community. If you've listened to any other episodes, you probably would have heard me talk a little bit about the Special Needs Mom group coaching program that I have. We're really ramping up and getting ready to start our second group. The time is now, ladies. We're starting the first week of May. It's going to be a community-based coaching program. What I mean by that is that we're not going to go learn on an island. We're going to learn from one another, with one another, for each other. As you watch other women step into the waters of self-discovery of what for them feels so vulnerable and raw, it helps you grow too. And it's really powerful to be with other women when they say yes to disrupting some of the parts of their life that they did not think were shakeable, especially when you have the kind of circumstances that we have as special needs moms, our children. We know these children are not going away, and we know these children are not necessarily changing, yet we want a different experience for ourselves. And so this is what this group and community is all about. It's all about exploring our own thoughts and stories and the ways that those stories either contribute to us having a life we love, that is joy-filled, that is peace-filled, that we're fully confident and feel capable in, or those stories could be serving to keep you feeling stuck or hopeless or constantly afraid. A lot of the moms say, I'm just waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting for the next traumatic experience to happen. And so I want to invite you to this community. The way to get more information is to click on the show notes, and you'll just sign up for a consultation where we get to have a one-on-one conversation to see what you want, to see if this group's right for you. And if you have any hesitations, we'll talk through those. Everybody has fears that come up when it comes to changing things around a little bit. Our survival kind of brain does not like change. It doesn't like, even if something doesn't necessarily feel good or we don't necessarily like it, we don't necessarily also want to change it. It kind of works in a funny way. And the last thing I want to leave you with is I want to leave you with those application questions that I promised in the intro of this episode. I want you to consider what thoughts you might be having, like Laurie, that are your old thoughts that you want to leave behind, that you recognize are not serving you. It might be like Laurie. She thought to herself, I won't be okay if he doesn't walk. What thoughts do you have? I won't be okay if fill in the blank. I'd be curious to know what comes up for you. Please consider sharing. I love hearing from you of what impacts you on the episodes. I've had some moms share with me their takings from it, and oh my gosh, it absolutely makes my day and sometimes week. I cannot wait to be with you guys next week. I am going to be doing a little bit of a switch up. I'm going to be doing a series based on a book that I love called Atomic Habits. A lot of you might have heard of it. It's been a pretty popular book, and it's by an author named James Clear. And I say this because I want to invite you, if you want to read along, we're not going to necessarily read the book together, but I'm going to be heavily basing the episode off of his teaching, his way of explaining things, because I think he has just done a phenomenal job of looking at our identity and our basically the way we think and feel about ourselves into looking at how that has us show up and act. And I think it's a really kind of fun way to breaking it down. We've done a lot of awareness conversations on this podcast. I'm going to switch it up and kind of put it into a little bit more tactical and practical. So that's what's coming up. I hope you will join us for that series. And of course, share it with all your friends. We all need each other. We'll see you guys next week. One more thing before we officially wrap up this show. Sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I have the experience of wanting more. I'm listening at the very end thinking, I sure wish that episode didn't end. I invite you, if you feel in any way the same way, I invite you to the Special Needs Mom podcast community, which is a free group that I host on Facebook, where we as a community of fellow moms who listen to this podcast and are experiencing life in similar shoes get to talk to one another, get to share stories, get to actually interact. I hope you'll consider joining. See you over there.